Welcome to the new Customer Workshop Podcast, Episode 1. I'm your host, Joe, and on this inaugural installment of the podcast, I'm going to start to teach you how to get your small business on the internet. I have to tell you, I'm really excited about getting involved in this podcast. You'll notice throughout the podcast that I'm clearly not a professional broadcaster. Despite that, I'll do my best to keep the ums and ahs to a minimum. There you go. And try to give you the most information that I can to help you build your small business by marketing on the internet. You know, I initially started the New Customer Workshop as a podcast at newcustomerworkshop.com, and I realized that I actually, preferred talking to people and teaching them verbally rather than writing. And I thought, you know what, if I'm going to do that, I think the best thing to do would be, to try podcasting and try my hand at that and see, if that works as a way of, getting as much great information out to small business owners as I can and help them really to build their online presence. And I started the New Customer Workshop, like I said, primarily to help small business owners. When I go out, I live in a fairly small town, and I generally prefer small businesses over big retail chains. And whenever I can, I try to support the local business owners, whether that's going to a local hardware store or preferring local restaurants instead of big chains. Whatever the type of small business, if I can, hit a small business first, I'll generally do that. And I notice, like, going into a lot of these businesses, some of the things that I take for granted. And just to give you a little bit about my background, I work for, spent some time at a large social media company, one of the top websites on the internet, to help them drive traffic into the site. So anytime I'm looking at businesses and looking at how they're doing marketing, I try to think, well, how would I do this, knowing what I know about internet marketing, and what are the things that I could do if I could help this one small business owner drive new customers into their store? How might I do that? And the more and more I was thinking about it, the more I thought, there's really an opportunity here for me to try to share some of this information that I know about internet marketing and social media, and use that to teach small business owners, things that they may not know, to help them bring in new business. So the idea is to basically bring like big marketing ideas into the world of the small business owner. All right, so that said, it's probably it's probably best to just kind of jump in with both feet and get started. So what I want to start talking about is how small business owners think about marketing today, or how small businesses go about marketing today, and compare that to larger companies who might be competing in that same industry, right? So if you think about like a local hardware store is a great example, I think, right? So you have, in my town, we have a small hardware store. It's owned by, gentleman, it generally has everything you need, and if he doesn't have it in stock, he can get it for you. And, for years I was going to, the big orange, mega hardware store when I needed home supplies, and it was mainly because I didn't think about this smaller business. It just I drove past it every day, but when it came time to make that decision that I needed to go and pick up nails, it was like, all right, well, you know what, I'm going to go to this big retailer. And I was kind of programmed to doing that, and it's I think a testament to just effective marketing from that retailer that drives me to there. And then over the years, as I became more sensitive to small businesses in the community, and it began to become my go-to hardware store, and I would generally call them up. If it was something that I wasn't sure they'd have, call them up, and if they didn't have it, and I needed it that day, I would then go to the other store. But the fact that for so many years I was going to the big store, I guess it gets me thinking about how can this this small hardware store compete, right? So they've got a limited advertising budget. They can, there's only so many things they can do to attract business. And when they're up against, a company that has, $100 million advertising budget, it's really hard for that small business owner to get their message out, and to get, to understand, or to get their customers to understand that they even exist, right? So, what do they do, right? It's probably very similar to what, you might do as a small business owner, right? You maybe advertise in a coupon clipper, advertise in Yellow Pages. You probably have a website set up, and then you kind of hope for the best, and hopefully word of mouth, and the fact that you're in a small community maybe, and people are driving by and they see maybe you have a great location. That's going to be enough to drive customers into your store. And of course, once they come into the store, if they have if you have what they're looking for, right, you kind of win them over, right? Because face it, the thing that I like the most about going into a small business is, it's very personal, right? I go into the local bank, the bank teller gives my kids a lollipop, and I go into, the hardware store, and my kids get a pretzel rod, and there's just a very folksy, down home feel to small businesses, and that's the thing that attracts me to them. And it's something that you don't get when you go into into the larger retail chains. It's much more cold experience. So once they're in, you can do a great job, and you can hook them, right? But the challenge is getting them there, and it's not going to happen through the way large companies do it. You're not going to spend, $1 million in advertising. You're lucky if you have $10,000 to spend in advertising, and $10,000 might buy you a radio spot for 30 days. Well, that's a complete waste of your marketing budget, because it's sort of like a shotgun, and you hope that it gets the job done. It always fascinated me whenever I go into the grocery store, right? I'll get a shopping cart, and I'm pushing it around. I notice there's a an ad for a real estate agent on the seat of the shopping cart, and I guess it's good for the grocery store. They're selling that as advertising placement, but to me, that's like the worst possible way, for a real estate agent to reach an audience. They're spending money, and yes, I'm seeing it, and of course I'm talking about it here, but I can't remember who the agent is. If I'm not in the market for a house at the same time that I'm pushing around a shopping cart, the message is completely ineffective. So the trick is that you have to sort of begin to think differently from large retail chains, and use your size as an advantage to help you come up with new creative ways to market yourself. And here's the thing, right? Where traditional advertising and marketing is done for big retailers through television, print, and all the various mediums. The one area where things kind of can level out and you have a level playing field is the internet, right? It's going to allow the small business owner to compete with a large business owner, and the trick though is to basically change the way you're thinking about how you do marketing. And as I said, traditional marketing is often thought about in terms of like broadcasting. So you buy a television ad and you put an ad out, and some number of people watch it, and some percentage of those people might be interested in your message at that time, and then they come into your store. Another percentage of the people may not be interested at that time, but they sort of tuck that information subconsciously away, and they see the ad enough times, and then they start to equate business X with product Y, and when they're ready to buy, they make that association, and then they go and do it, right? But it's not a very efficient way of getting your message out, because you're spending a lot of money to buy a lot of eyeballs or ears, but only a small percentage of those are ever really interested at any one time in your message. Okay. The trick is to get your message to your customer when and where they're looking for it, and that's sort of the key point of this episode, and it's also the key point of really what the new customer workshop is about, right? It's turning around the idea of marketing from a broadcast model to what I like to call magnetic marketing. And I don't think I've coined this term. I know I've heard it before, but the idea is that you're going to build a presence online that's going to attract the customers to you by a number of things. We'll get into that in a minute. But by doing that, you're able to do just as good of a job at bringing customers to your site as the big box retailers. And it's not about buying ads online, although you could do that. Instead, it's about building a interconnected presence online that is going to attract customers, get them into your store, and then use those customers to basically create this feedback loop that's going to help drive in larger customers. And really, you can distill what I'm talking about into really 4 steps, right? So the first is to build your presence on the internet. You may have a website today that somebody set up for you. Maybe you paid a web developer to do it. Maybe you've set it up yourself, or you had a friend or relative do it. But in general, small business owners or small business websites that I've seen have not quite had all of the sort of key features necessary to attract customers. And the way they're going to attract customers is by building the website around the things that the customer or the potential customer or the lead is going to be thinking about, right? And by doing that, you're going to sort of optimize your website for search engines, right? And you may have heard the term search engine optimization, right? And search engine optimization isn't about a bag of tricks to get your website found on the internet. It's really about creating enough compelling content that and understanding your customer, that's the bigger piece of it, understanding what they're going to be looking for, so that when they type that search query into Google, your website's going to be the thing that pops up on top. Right? So, so step 1 is basically that. You want to build a presence on the internet that is set up in a way to attract traffic through search engine queries. Right? And once they get there to this place, which is, now going to be your home base online, is it organized in a way that invites them to take action, whatever that action might be? And we're going to talk about that concept in later episodes. Right? And then step 2, once you've built your presence on the internet, in your website, you're going to build a presence on other social media websites that are going to point back to your home base. Right, so Facebook page and a Twitter account, and in some cases, depending on your business, LinkedIn or some of the other social networks are going to you're going to create a presence on there, and the whole purpose of those is to attract people that are in that space, right? That are maybe doing searches on LinkedIn for information about widget making, right? And when they search for widget making, they're going to find your business, and the information in LinkedIn is going to point them back to your website. A lot of times I've gone to a website for a small or large business. Really, I've seen this problem in a lot of cases where you go to the website and it says, check us out on Facebook, or, you'll get a brochure in the mail, or, in a coupon, in the weekly coupon circular, you'll see, check us out on Facebook. And you go to the Facebook page and there's nothing there, or you go to the Twitter account and they don't do anything. And, it's sort of the wrong way to think about it. Instead of using your website to drive traffic away from your business to Facebook and Twitter, instead, you're going to leverage the massive amounts of people that are on these social networks and drive them back to your site, right? And then once they get into, the third step in this process is basically to create compelling information that you can share with your audience. And, this is another area where, small business owners have an opportunity to compete and really succeed and blow away, their larger competition. You have something unique as a small business owner. You have one, you have domain knowledge, right? You understand your business. But two, you have ties to the community, right? So you understand, what it's like to be a hardware store owner in a small town, right? So, you can create content that you can put on your website that is built around your domain expertise in the area that you live in. And we'll get into how to do that in later episodes. But that's really going to be the key to driving traffic to your website. And then the fourth piece is what I call uncovering your champions, right? So once you've built this presence online, right? If everything works right, they're going to search in Google and they're going to find your website. They're going to be on Facebook. They're going to find your Facebook page and they're going to land on your website, and they're going to see that, there's great content, and eventually, this is going to drive them into your store, right? And once they get into the store, we've already talked about the fact that, I think small business owners have the advantage of being able to create, a great experience inside the store, right? But the key is to figure out, for the customers that come in, who are the ones that can basically go back out and help, bring in new business, right? So, you think about, like, you go to a restaurant, right? You have a good experience or you have a bad experience, right? You go to a restaurant on a Friday night. Saturday night, you're at a neighborhood party. Oh, what you do on Friday? Oh, I went to, such and such a restaurant, and it was great. And, you're talking about this restaurant, and now, you've just potentially influenced, 5 or 10 people that you talked to at the party about how great this restaurant is. And, maybe one of those people will decide to check it out. Well, that's a 20%. Basically you've just, increased your customer base, or that person drove 20% of the people he influenced into your store, and it didn't cost you a dime. So think about this for a second, right? The average Facebook user has 130 Facebook friends. So if you can tap into that, you can potentially leverage good customer experience into new business into your website. And we're gonna get into all that stuff in later episodes too. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up for today. Get this first episode in the can. Before we do, we'll do a quick recap and just kind of go over the stuff that I talked about earlier. So the whole concept here is magnetic marketing, getting your message to your customers when and where they're looking for it. And you're basically going to do it by following 4 steps. Right? The first is to build, a really killer website that has all the information that your customers are most interested in. So the things that they're going to be searching on. We're going to figure out how to determine the things they're searching on and make sure that information is on your website. The second step is to build a presence on other social media websites that basically point back to your home base. And that way you can leverage the power of the internet, the massive amounts of traffic on those websites. Use them to funnel traffic to your website. This third step is we're going to create compelling information to share with your audience. So once they land on your website, you're going to use your domain expertise and your understanding of business and of your customers to give them information that they can use then to make purchasing decisions and make them want to be your customer. And then the fourth step is to, once your customer gets into the store, identify the ones that potentially have influence over a lot of other customers and try to direct market to them so that they can become champions for your business. All right, well, that about wraps it up for today. I appreciate everybody taking their time out of their day to tune into this episode. I know your time is super valuable, and the fact that I could be part of your day, I just totally appreciate it. So I'm going to try to do a new episode once every 2 weeks, and hopefully at some point I'll get to the point where we can, maybe turn this into a weekly podcast. But in the meantime, please check out newcustomerworkshop.com/podcast to learn more about this podcast and sign up for alerts so you'll know when a new episode is published. And, if you thought I did a halfway decent job and didn't stutter or stammer too much, please head on over to the iTunes store and give this podcast a rating. I really appreciate your feedback, and, positive ratings help, boost my ranking in the iTunes store. And, by doing so, it gives me an opportunity to get my message exposed to more and more people. So that's it. And that's a wrap for today. And I'll hopefully hear from you soon.